On the air with who?
Mark Brumman, local resident since '04 in Charlotte.
What brought you to Charlotte?
You know, I was living in Atlanta, and I dated a girl, and her parents lived at Lake Norman. So we used to come visit and kept going downtown. It was so nice, so clean. In Atlanta, the traffic was getting to me, and I said, you know, I'm going to move to Charlotte. It was very nice. Sundays were really nice. There's no bums around. The streets were clean. I still remember the street sweepers going through Charlotte. Oh, yeah.
Compared to Atlanta?
Oh, yeah. Compared to Atlanta. Yeah.
Charlotte, you love it?
I do.
Yeah. And
it's awesome.
So it was a weed. Who came? Just you?
Just myself.
Just yourself.
It was probably single-handedly the best decision I've ever made in my life.
Right on, man.
Yep.
So what did you do when you moved here for work?
I actually worked, I was in the car business before that.
Okay. Explain.
So
what do you mean car business?
I had a lot in Atlanta.
Right on.
And since I was probably 19. So
Moving cars.
moving cars, yeah.
Auction.
Go to the auctions, buy them, trade-ins,
What
whatever
kind of
it was.
cars?
European.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the price points on those?
Lower end, 5,000 to 20,000.
Perfect. That's the money makers right there.
Yeah, most of the people had the money for that.
I call them cash cars.
Correct.
Anything people should come and write a check for.
Yep, I
Perfect.
agree. So I was doing that, and my plan was to open up one here. And my neighbor goes, hey, my brother's got a garage door company, and he needs some help. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll help him out a couple days a week. And so I ended up doing that. And I worked for him about 3 months, and he just was a really bad person to the customers.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, you know, with different prices for different customers. And I'm like, you know, I knew the money was there. I saw him writing down what he was doing every day. And I go, I think I'm going to give this a shot. So 110,000 customers up until I sold in February.
So you started the Garage Door Doctor.
Correct.
And this was when, 04, 05?
05.
05, you started the Garage Door Doctor. And so take me through the process of your brain going, okay, I just worked for somebody for 3 months, kind of learning the business. Step one is what? Buying a truck? Upfitting it? Like, go through the step process of what you went through in starting that development process of starting a business from scratch. Like, I don't know shit. I used to buy and sell cars. Yeah. Now I'm starting the Garage Door Doctor. I've been doing this shit 3 months. You just rolled the dice. You were like, I'm going to buy a truck, wrap it, and say, I'm now in the garage door business.
Yeah, well, what I really bought was a Volkswagen van. A Volkswagen van for $1,700 because you could take the seats out. It was big. I knew the European cars. And I liked them, and I started in that for a little bit. But
by yourself?
Correct.
You were installing, putting them in, springs, ordering?
Yeah, back then, before Google and all that was Google was just getting started as far as picking up. But they had the Yellow Book. So the Yellow Book came out once a year.
Right.
And they call them double trucks. So it's basically 2-page ad.
Right.
So seniority and the biggest ad got placement in that category at the time. So I put an ad, and I think it was coming out in September, and I had just got the deadline for the book, and we were waiting for that to come out because that was really the advertising then. Probably 6 months later, I started to get onto Google, or maybe 3 or 4 months after that. But back then, I was doing tracking numbers, through our website, and the technology really was only for the bigger companies. You'd call into whatever your power company or cable company, and they say, hey, this call's being recorded, blah, blah, blah. But back then, that was 17 years ago. Now small companies and have the ability to do that. So got onto Google, and I remember it was just me and Overhead Door. And I was just plucking them off every single day.
Love it.
So working, and I'm not BSing, but literally working from 7 in the morning till 9, 10 at night, 7 days a week.
I know those hours.
I missed Thanksgivings, Christmas, because I wanted to stay
ahead of everybody.
I'm like, I'm going to be the one answering the phones. So everybody was working pretty much Monday through Friday. One of my taglines at the end of my radio ads was, I don't care whether it's Sunday or Monday, 10 in the morning or 10 at night. We're here, same pricing.
Yeah.
So, but that was then. Things have changed.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily like that anymore.
When did you hire your first employee?
It was after about 6 months.
Really?
Yeah.
So you worked by yourself for 6 months?
I was doing 12 to 14 jobs a day.
What kind of money were you making?
The first year?
Yeah.
I pulled in probably 250, 275.
That's the gross?
To me, yeah, that's what I netted.
Net, 250 grand.
Yeah.
Working by yourself doing
Yeah.
garages.
Yeah.
If anybody's listening to this podcast, there's a lot of money in fucking garages.
But
He no longer owns Garage Door Doctor, so if you'd like to start the Garage Door Medic, let me know.
yeah, well, I tell everyone, the making money is the easy part. It's finding people to do it.
Yeah, the
is
infrastructure
really
is the
what it
hardest part.
Yeah, but it was good. And, I think the biggest thing was just treating the customers fairly.
How did you find your first employee?
It was a friend of a friend.
Okay, so it was a referral.
Correct. Yep.
And he have any experience?
No, I
You just
trained him.
Trained him from scratch?
Yep.
And how long did that take for him to catch on?
Ideally, a month, to get him fully trained
Okay.
out in the field.
Okay.
After that, it's about 3 months of phone calls.
Okay.
Everything functions the same, but it's probably about 3 months of phone calls to go, oh, well, this is a little bit different. You're setting limits here, how far the door goes up, and pressures, and,
Yeah. Garrett, are you familiar with garage doors?
I am.
Okay. So I was at a friend's house, and we were about to leave, and we heard this boom. And I was like, what the fuck was that? And a spring broke. And I'm telling you, I'm pretty strong. I go to the gym every day. I don't look weak. This thing was not moving, bro. I was like, ugh. It's like, our car was in there. And it was like, what do we do? Like, what do you do? Like, it was panic. It was like all of a sudden 911. I've got to leave. My car's in the garage. I can't go anywhere. I'm like, this is crazy. You deal with those all the time.
Oh yeah, in the winter, because obviously they're steel springs.
Right.
So it's like basically, I tell people it's like taking a coat hanger back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah.
Eventually, it's gonna break, and that's pretty much the tension is on. It
And
twists and
nobody
twists.
oils these things. Are they
They
supposed to be oiled?
Quarterly. Even if you do it once a year, that's good.
I've never.
Nobody
I've been in my house
does.
18 years. Never. Ever oiled.
We actually I actually created a sheet
Yep.
that when we leave, it's called the green sheet, and we give it to the customer, and it tells them exactly how to service the door, all the maintenance.
I mean,
that
you
they're supposed to
literally,
do.
the 50,000 customers you have since '04, you literally could start another van of just every year going and oiling all the stuff for like an extra $199 a month or a year or something.
Yeah, the service end of it, it's not typically like your HVAC where you have the filters
Right.
and all that stuff, which is kind of maintenance. The garage doors, people just aren't interested in that.
Really?
No.
Until they break.
Until they break, then it's an emergency.
I would-
It goes, the level goes from here
Goes to zero,
here.
yeah.
Yeah, 0 to
911.
110. And they're like, they don't care about it, and then they're like, hey, I need it now.
Do you stock all these springs?
Oh, yeah.
You stock all
Yeah.
of them. You
Yeah.
show up. You can be an emergency. And
Yeah.
help people out.
So one of the, while we're talking about, one of the big things is when I first started and I was running with the other guys, we had to always go back and get parts. There was parts, and back then they were reading the maps. Do you remember the maps that you used to flip and you'd be
Yeah.
on like page
Yeah.
4C?
Dude,
and-
when I got my first Garmin, I was like,
Yeah.
bro, I got a Garmin.
So I bought a GPS, and it was like $750 or something.
Yeah, it was like a square this big that said,
Yes.
And I showed up to the supply house, and everyone's like, what's this guy doing? I'm like, dude, I'm getting to the job faster.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But
That's awesome.
so we run with about 50 or 60 springs on the truck, and most companies will have 10 or 15.
so you
so
have
we're not
everything.
coming back. We don't
Yeah.
get as good gas mileage, but I'm not going back to
You're prepared.
We're done.
You're getting better gas mileage because you don't have to go back to the office to
Correct.
want to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Downtime's everything.
Yeah. So I was always constantly trying to improve.
So what's
that.
an average ticket for replacing, say, a spring that breaks? $300-400?
Now in the high fours.
Okay.
But while I created a package deal where we do all the bearings and cables and rollers,
Yep.
so we bundle it together.
And what does that take time-wise? Like probably 3-4 hours?
It depends on the technician. I can get it done in
You're one that's
45
been
minutes.
less than a year.
Yeah, probably 2 hours.
Okay. So 2.5. Okay,
in that
cool.
range. A really good experienced tech, 45 minutes to an
And
hour.
then the parts that you use are very minimal. They're not that expensive.
No.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Cool. And so you grew the company into how many trucks and vans?
By the end of it, we had 7.
7 trucks.
Yep.
Employees, dispatch,
Dispatch, yeah.
sales center. How many salespeople?
We only had one sales guy.
One sales guy.
Yeah.
And he just...
You probably could have 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he was hustling.
The last 3 years of it, I wasn't as invested as I was.
Yeah, I know. I saw you online.
I
You were
was
racing cars.
I racing and hanging at the pool every day.
I know. Your luxury life over here. But yeah, so that's really cool. 7 vans and gross sales. Your best year, what did you do in gross sales with 7 vans? I'm just curious.
We were a little over 3 million.
Okay. That's very good. 3 million? That's awesome.
Yeah. The margins are phenomenal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course they are.
Yeah. But we've always stayed. I never wanted to be the highest. I never wanted to be the lowest.
Right.
I just wanted to give them fair, honest service. And that's where we wanted to be, because growing to 110,000 customers in those 18 years was from referrals. 80% of our business was either repeat or referrals.
Right.
So we were always kind of fighting online for that 20%. But you treat people fair and they're going to tell, and it just grows.
Charlotte, I've been here since I was 6 years old.
Yeah.
My first company was Lightning Mike's Window Tinting, and I basically worked it by myself.
I remember on Monroe Road.
Yeah, I was hustling, answering the phone, tinting every car, doing everything I could. Never said no to anybody. And the guy goes, "Man, I only have $200, or I only have 100. Bring it. I don't care. How much money do you have? I got this. Okay, I want it." I never said no to anybody. I burned myself out, over-promising and over-delivering, and never had time for myself.
Yeah.
And almost exhausted myself to the point where I hated my job. And years later, I sold the company, came back as Sunstoppers, and I built the brand to be not about me, and about my technicians, about the service, about the quality, and the reputation I had with Lightning Mike's. I did a little bit of that with Sunstoppers, but I created more of the Sunstoppers Starbucks experience. I don't want anybody to know I was the owner. For like 6 years, nobody even knew I fucking owned Sunstoppers. I'm like, I'm an investor. I'm over here. But as I got older and I started getting back in the business and growing it, I just learned so much about how to hire people, how to empower them, how to give them profit sharing. The biggest thing is getting good technicians and keeping them interested in staying with you instead of going out on their own.
Sure.
And if you pay them enough, and it's too difficult for them to see going out on their own, because they look at that level of income and go, I'm happy where I'm at, comfortable. But you got to give people room for growth.
Yep.
And but that's amazing. $3 million in your business. You just sold it.
Just sold it.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. What are you doing now?
Well, I'm traveling.
Yeah.
And I literally have worked more in the last 4.5 months than I ever have in 5 years on my house, getting rid of, decluttering, selling items.
Yes.
I mean, I had 3 attics in the house, and they were full of parts and like crazy stuff. So, and then my warehouse, just decluttering.
It's awesome.
On my way over, I was talking to my real estate agent, and I said, I like South End. Find me something over there. I'll rent the house out. I don't want that stuff anymore. It's just too much.
It's too much to manage.
Yeah. Got my water bill was like $360, and like power 7 and gas was like 5. I'm like, I shouldn't be doing this.
So how many cars do you own?
Right now I've got 43.
43 cars.
Hashtag goals right now. I'm going through his Instagram. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be stalking him a little bit.
Where did the love and the passion come from cars? I mean, you sold cheap, cars, but where did you buy? When did you buy like your first? All of a fucking sudden, I got a little bit of money, and then you said, "All right, I'm buying this car." Which one was it?
So, I've got 3 other siblings, but my oldest is only 4.5 years older than me. So with my brother, 2 sisters, and then me, I was the youngest. And as my dad was always into cars. His father ran a Chevy dealer up in Washington. So anyway, so I was into cars with him, but as he was teaching him how to drive a 5-speed, or at that time it may have been a 4-speed, I was always in the back seat. So when I was 12, I got the ability to be able to drive the car, and I always liked him. He was into cars. He's still into cars. My brother's into them. I'm into them. I think I bought an Austin Mini Cooper when I was like 14 for $1. And it was in my friend's neighborhood, and I kept going by, and I knew what they were because I lived in Seattle, and we used to go into Canada, and the Minis were up there. And I just, at 6, 7, 8 years old, I fell in love with these Minis. So it was sitting in this guy's garage, and one time I went in there and I asked him, I said, "Hey, do you want to sell that?" And he goes, "You can have it." And I'm like, "Really?" And I said, well, I have to pay you something for a bill of sale. And he goes, yeah. He goes, my wife wants it out. The kids play in it, blah, blah. We ended up getting it back to my house. I had it towed over. And we changed out like the fuel lines, the spark plugs, all this stuff. And it wouldn't fire up. So I ended up listing it for sale. I never got to drive it. Ended up listing it for sale. This guy buys it. You don't can believe this. Guy buys it and he goes, and he switched the spark plugs and he drove off.
Holy shit.
And I had this guy, Chris Reagan, one of my buddies, I had him change the plugs and the wires, and he
had the wires backwards.
Yeah. And literally the guy did this, and I'm like, I'm like, dude.
You got me.
Yeah.
What'd you end up selling it for? Like $1,000?
Oh, yeah. I don't know what it was, but.
Enough to get the parts money back out of it?
Yeah. But it was, back then.
You should have said, can you take me for a drive?
I know. Yeah. But yeah, he literally, he bought it and then he just goes, and he took off.
Oh my God, that's crazy. Yeah. So what was the first car you bought in Charlotte? Like when you got here and bought a house and said, I'm going to buy a badass car, what'd you buy?
I bought, my first part of my collection was an Alfa Romeo Callaway twin turbo.
Yeah? And where'd you get that?
So one of the friends that I lived with, or that I was friends with in Atlanta, his dad owned the Paul Sproul Alpha, the dealership, and his neighbor had a Callaway twin turbo. And it was, I got a story about this too. But so anyway, I was making good. I've always made over $100,000 ever since I was in business, right? Yeah. But what I really started to do, and I started to buy some serious cars. That was the one because I always liked the Alphas. And I remember seeing it it was by the airport. I was called Peachtree Cab Airport. I remember the guy like pulling out, and I was like, man, I want that thing.
This is the one that James Bond drives an Octopussy.
Correct. Yeah, he drives a
GTV, but it's
GTV,
yes. But just for those people that don't know what we're talking about, if you've seen that movie, that's the Alpha that he steals from the woman in the phone booth.
Correct. Yes, you're exactly right. Yeah. James Bond, I also have like a Renault R5 Turbo. He drove one of those. Yep. And then I've got a Lotus, which he drove.
The Esprit. I saw the black, basically the John Player.
Yeah. Well, he sat it was in his basement. It sat for a little while, and he goes, my daughter's going to college. I want to sell these two Alphas. And I said, I'll take it. And I think it was like $20,000 at the time, or 22, something like that. And I said, I'll take it. I sent him the money, and I go down to pick it up, and he goes, don't rev it over like 4,500 or something. I'm buying it. I'm like getting to drive it. And he goes, but feel the torque between like 3 and 4. And I'm like, okay, right? And of course, I get out and I'm just like,
5,000 screaming.
Yeah. And I'm watching the boost gauge, and it should be going up to like 10 or 12, and it's like 1. And I'm like, man, this thing sucks. It's a twin turbo. I'm like, this thing sucks. And I'm like, dude, I drive to my dad's lake house. And I'm like, something's wrong. I don't know what's going on. I'm like, man, the turbos are bad. Well, I get the thing back to Charlotte, and one of my buddies comes over, and he's like, we're messing around with it. We can't figure it out. He goes, push the gas pedal. And I push it, and he goes, dude, check this out. Well, it's twin turbo, so it's got 2 throttle bodies. Well, one of the cables was broken. So what it does is this turbo spools up, and it's sucking from the other one, so there's no turbos, right? So we get a zip tie, and we're like, zip, and we get out, and the thing's just like smoking the tires. I'm like,
okay, yeah, this is the car I bought.
Yeah. So the guy, I can't remember. I think the guy had to send me like the some sort of paperwork on it, and I call him and I go, I'm trying to think of his name. I can't remember the guy's name, and I go, he did all his own maintenance on it. And I go, hey, man, did you ever take this, like, really all the way out? And he goes, no. And I go, the throttle cable was broken. You never got to drive this car like it was supposed to. He had no idea because he never got on it all the way.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
He was just driving it with no turbos.
He was driving it like a sissy. Yep.
That's crazy.
So we, like, zip tied it and just burned rubber up there.
So you just kind of learned how to work on cars yourself?
Yeah, I was even working on like my brother's and sister's cars before I was able to drive. And I'm good friends with Reeves Callaway, and they made 37 of these GTV6s, and I've got 5 of them. And then they made a Callaway twin turbo Milano, which is the 4-door. It was supposed to be done last week, full restoration.
Wow.
But Reeves a really good guy. So back then, Reeves, which is also Callaway Golf Clubs, is the family. Callaway Gardens. They've got a lot of wineries and stuff out in California. So pretty prominent family. But nevertheless, back then the tuners were, like Alpina, the AMG. Callaway's right up there. He was twin turbo in these cars. So the story goes
for Corvettes.
So, well, and that's what I was just getting to.
Sorry.
So the story goes, how did these Corvettes, which really took off, and when I talked to Reeves, he said, I had to buy these Alphas. I had to buy them out of my own money. I paid for them, brought them in. Then the dealers would sell them. So we sent the dealers all the brochures, the pamphlets, and they would go, hey, we have this option if you want to twin turbo it. Reeves had the car, he'd build it, he'd send it to the dealer, off to the customer. But one of the guys from GM came down. I don't remember if they either bought it or drove it. I think they bought one. And at the time, you had the 944 turbo, and they were running against these guys. So the guys from Chevy goes, we want you to build our cars. And Reeves said, it was the end of the Alpha project. So that's why they only made 37 of them, because Chevy said, we will give the cars to you and offer them as a dealer option. So that's how. That's how. Cool. And after that, they're still building them to this day.
Callaway twin turbo.
Callaway Engineering. I think they do the 5.7 liters, whatever it may be.
I mean, you've got Callaway, you've got Roush, you've got Shelby, you've got. I mean, Celine's gone.
Yep.
There's one. Hennessy.
Yep.
Those are a lot of American.
Right.
You're more of an American.
Yeah, I like
American.
Guy. Well, the fucking problem is, bro, I'm 6'2", 235, and my big fucking feet don't drive these European cars.
So speaking of that Lotus, right? When I bought it, it was all restored. Super nice guy. Really sad story. His guy's name's Jeff Rodriguez. He was running the Thermal Club in California, and I bought it. Actually, this is funny. So I bought it on Bring a Trailer, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
And me and this guy are going back and forth. And I think I paid like $30,000 for it. Dude, the cars are stored. I mean, it costs you $20 to paint a car, right? Everything's all nice and neat on it. And so anyways, I bid, and I'm like, geez, I just won this. Well, the guy leaves a comment. And he goes, I was still bidding. It didn't take my bid. And my response was, you got to get off dial-up and spend more money on a faster service. And Bring a Trailer was like, don't wait till the last second to bid, right? But anyways, Jeff Rodriguez owned that out of a Thermal Club. And a sad story, I bought an M4 and came from them. I said, the guy sent it out. I said, hey, does Jeff still work? And he goes, no, he passed away like 2 months ago. Found out he had cancer. 3 weeks later, he was done.
No way.
Yeah. But super nice guy. He sent me boxes and boxes of parts. And I mean, they would just show up like a month or two later. Not that he ever told me. He just sent them to me.
That's so cool. That's what I love about the car community is if you get a true enthusiast, they just want to make sure that it goes.
Yep.
I still check on my old cars.
Yeah.
I had a couple Europeans.
I bought a Ducati off Bring a Trailer 2 or 3 years ago, and I never rode it. I always wanted a yellow 748. Well, the guy hits me up a month ago, and he goes, do you want to sell it? And I'm like, it's only got 1,900 miles. It's built. And I said, no. And then he wrote me this story. He's like, it's really sentimental to me. He's coming tomorrow to pick it up.
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
Because to me,
that's pretty
I
cool.
told him, I said, I never even started it. I just put it into the collection. Most, like my cars, all my cars I drive. I drive every car. Every car. But the motorcycles, I'm just not. I like them, but I'm not riding them. But so I told him, I said I never started it up.
So Gary, he goes to a car show and he calls 43 of his friends.
No, I saw he brought 13 to Radwood.
Oh yeah, that was a real special.
He was Radwood.
That was a special moment. It was my birthday.
Yeah.
And so my family was up, and I mean, this is my Radwood, right? Like this is what I like. So we jumped in the cars and took some over there.
Love it. Where was this at?
It was over at, I don't know if it was Gibbs Race. No, it was Hendrick. It was Hendrick Racing over in Concord. So we went through, we toured like all of his Corvettes and stuff that he had.
That's cool.
So it was pretty neat.
Awesome. You ever been over there to the Hendrick Museum?
No, I've never been.
Oh, dude, it's insane. 2 or 3 hours, and you're just like,
I would love it.
It's like 001, 001, 0. It's like,
well, that's his thing. He loves buying the first of anything. Because he goes to Barrett Jackson. And that's what he does.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of those are. I watched some of the auctions. Yeah, the first year is typically charity or the one,
Right.
and then they bring a lot. It's good for him, raising
gets to
money
write that shit
and
off.
getting what he wants. The only thing I didn't understand when we went through there is I think there's whatever year he bought. I don't know what it was, 64 or 7, or I don't know, whatever Corvette he bought, the first one. He has like 20 or 30 of them, right? But he's like, this one's white with red interior,
Right.
no glove box, and then he'll be like, this is white with red with a right mirror, not a left mirror. It's like all of the same stuff, same year, but it just was like, it only came in yellow. And I'm like, okay.
There was one option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like one option off.
Right.
Instead of AM, it only had FM.
It was the
or whatever.
oddball.
Yeah.
I put the brown sock on the left and the black sock on the right.
And
I went out in public and won the lottery that day. So now I wear a brown sock. That was now worth more.
And I think everyone's collection is like what they like. That's their gig.
Well, getting back to what you guys were saying earlier about the car culture, the motorcycle culture is very similar. We were race motocross with my son. And we would build bikes. We would send the motors off to the motor shop and like Pro Circuit, and then we'd have the suspension sit off to like the suspension company. We put the suspension back on, then we put the bike in, we tune it, put the pistons, and have the oxygenated fuel, and then we'd have all the thing tricked out, right? And then people would come to us at the racetrack and be like, "Bro, those bikes are bull banging!" And I'm like, "Yeah." And we maintained them. I had a mechanic every race, take care of them, take them apart, put them back together, like we were a race team. My son was good in motocross. He wasn't great, like he wasn't like the superstar, but he kept getting better, like every month. He just kept climbing that ladder, and then he kind of made it to the top of the ladder, but he didn't have that killer instinct. He was just that kid that loved to ride his dirt bike with his friends. He was safe. He would get good starts and get out front quick and then kind of fade and still finish in a good position because he was able to get out front quick. But man, people would come to me at the racetrack like, "Bro, when you sell those bikes, don't tell anybody. You come to me. I want those bikes." Because you go from 85s and at the end of the year you sell them, and then you get new ones, and then you trade up, and then he was about to go from 85s to like 125s and 250s. So everybody, and then 65s. This is the ones everybody wanted. We had these KTM 65 motorcycles that I sent down to Nihilo, and this dude put like new bearings, like I don't even know the terminology, but like port polish, new piston, bored out, new this, new that. Bottom end, top end, balanced, blueprinted, and I'm sitting there going, it's like a science. This dude like sent me like a map of everything he was going to do to the motor, and I'm sitting there going, "Bro, we just want to get a good start." He goes, "This is how you get a good start."
Did you see? And I don't know who the guy was, but it was just recently. Like he was telling his stories. Like one of the high racers, he had a big bore kit on this.
Yeah, big bore.
Yeah, but he was racing, but he wasn't sponsored by anybody, right? So he had his own big bore, and he was supposed to and they're like, "There's no way that 80cc is pulling that quick."
Motherfucker got 125 piston.
And he had raced like 10 or 15 years before. He's like, "Oh yeah, we had big bore kits on it."
We were cheating like a son of a bitch.
Yeah, I just saw it like a month ago.
I'm not going to say we did or didn't do that.
Yeah.
Not going to
You
say.
can neither confirm nor deny.
I'm going to say is I didn't build the motor.
Yeah.
And I never looked inside. But all I know is my son loved to get off the starts pretty good on that bike.
I was racing a spec series, which was the BMW spec series. And I had a good friend of mine that was always winning. Well, the last race of the year was in Sonoma. And guess what? They pulled the gearbox, and he had all polished gears in there because he was getting out of the corner early. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, "You son of a bitch. I've been racing again." And after then, I'm like, "Fuck him, dude."
Now you polished yours.
Yeah. Well, it was sponsored by his sponsorship was Diffs Online. So, yeah.
So when did the racing thing come out for you? Because I see you're now racing a Lamborghini.
Yeah.
What is that?
It's a Super Trofeo Evo 2.
Yeah. So, what is that? I don't even know what the hell it is. It looks funky.
It's a Huracan.
It's a Huracan built to race.
Correct.
And
factory built.
And where'd you buy that?
I bought it probably 3 months ago.
Yeah, I saw it. It was cool.
Yeah. Once I sold the company, I wanted to go do the stuff that I want to do. So the traveling, the racing.
Still got your RV?
I do.
Yep.
Yeah, I will never not have an RV. I can tell you that.
Love it.
Top 5 purchases ever.
You love that.
I love it. I would live in it. Literally, I would live in it. I love it. Every time I get in that and I get on the road, I just, as soon as I go, man, I love this thing.
Do you feel 70 when you drive it?
No, but people are, that's the thing is I never thought I'd own an RV. When you think of like RVs, you think of people, they're retired,
they're
traveling
70
around.
years old, got the belly out to here.
I'm telling you, I mean,
they're pulling the,
it's so nice.
whatever the car, the Jeep,
CRV.
Jeep Wrangler.
It's a CRV or something.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's so nice. Like, I don't need anything more than that. I absolutely love it. Washer, dryer,
sell the house, live in it.
I know. There's places like, I was looking down in Boca, they've got a place at 450 lots, and I think they're $200,000 for the lot. You park your, it's literally on the beach. Now, granted, I'd be playing,
shuffleboard, shuffleboard, and you'd be crocheting at night.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But I love the RV, man. I was racing a couple weeks ago down at CMP, and a buddy of mine was asking about it. And I go, once you get that RV and you can stay at the track and you don't have to go to and from, and if you want to make a sandwich, you make a sandwich, you got to go to the bathroom, you go to the bathroom, you will always have an RV.
Yeah. So the racing, when did you start racing?
It was about 8 years ago.
And tell me the first race. First car.
It was an Alfa Romeo GTV6. Okay. Most of these motors are bulletproof. Like they're really good, especially on the low end. But the engine blew. It was a street.
What car was this again?
It was an Alfa Romeo GTV6.
Alfa Romeo
GTV6.
It's the one that it's like the Callaway.
It's a twin turbo car?
No, it's just a regular.
It's
V8.
Yeah,
six. Yeah.
Okay. What horsepower was it? 500.
Factory, I think they're 154 or something like that.
They're screamers. They're high revving.
Oh, it's like a Civic.
Yeah.
It's like a Type S Civic.
Yeah.
Or something.
So it took about 8 years for these guys to actually do the work, slow as could be. And honestly, at the end of it, all I had was like red Coney shocks and like a roll bar in it. Yeah, it took them forever. But anyways, and I didn't care because I was working at the time. But went out, started to race. I was kind of like a little back of mid-pack. And then started to get the car a little bit more in it because, like I said, there was nothing on it, right? It was just like shocks. And I see it had a set of lowering springs on it. Nothing was dialed in. But started to fix the car up, then moved up to the middle, and then started winning a lot of the races.
That's cool. What race? Like, what is the circuit? What's it called?
It's like HSR, Historic Sports Racing.
Historic Sports Racing.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. So
you have to have an older car. How old?
It's supposed to be, now they've changed, but I think it was 20 years.
The car's got to be 20 years old.
Yeah.
Okay.
So back then I was running against like Z cars, 2002, some Datsun 510s. It fit into that group. But I just ran the Super Trofeo down at the Walter Mitty in Atlanta. So as long as the car's been in production for, I think it was 5 years, you can run it now, because all of those vintage stuff is dying out. Like the guys they're older now,
right?
So they're trying to get in and
they're trying to revamp the whole
GT,
circuit.
Yeah, the GT cars. You got a Porsche. Like I was running against GT3 Porsches and stuff like that. So they're trying to get those guys, and it's the right move. Even though it's historic racing, it's the right move. You just can't have a brand new model car. It may have been, actually, it may be 8 years because it was at 15. It's either 5 or 8, I don't know. But they're bringing them back into the series, which is great because.
Do you win any prize money or anything?
Not at those. Trans Am, I won a lot, and we get paid in that. So.
How did you learn how to drive? Just learned how to drive?
Yeah, I still remember the big wheel at my grandma's house. Just go circling through like sliding and go it was so much fun.
Garrett, did you have a big wheel?
I did.
Yeah,
of course I did.
Had e-brake, right?
Yep.
The green machine.
Are you kidding?
The green machine, baby.
I had one of those. Yeah. And there was a larger version that came out. I actually got to do the prototype.
Yeah.
I got to ride the prototype for that.
Did Mattel do that?
It was another company, and then Mattel did.
Coleco actually did them. Do you remember Coleco?
I do. Yes.
They used
because Mattel owned Power Wheels.
Yeah.
Is Mr. Wonderful tied into that? Like
Mr. Wonderful?
Yes. So whenever we
I
would
kind of
watch
remember
Shark Tank,
that. Yeah.
we would roll our eyes because there's a long history behind that, but he sold a company to Mattel under one of the previous CEOs.
Yeah.
And it did not do well. And so that's how he established his fortune.
Yeah, I think I remember something that they sold to Mattel.
See, the thing with Shark Tank though is you don't get what you think you're getting, and you end up giving up a lot to get little.
Yeah. I can see that.
So
Well, there's been some home runs. I mean,
There's been a few.
Yeah.
But you think of
The
how
majority.
many they go through.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very, very few, and you would not like having a boss.
No. You don't either. I don't think you can handle a boss. You could work for me though.
Probably.
I could probably work for you.
Yeah.
I think we're.
Yeah. I've actually learned now. I'm just like, I've been trying it. I'm like, do whatever you think's right.
Yeah.
And I walk away, and I'm like, and then it doesn't work, and I'm like, okay.
That seems to be some of my strategies.
I'm just
now.
like, whatever.
Well, one thing I used to tell people: if money can fix it, don't call me.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna call me, fuck my day up, and it's gonna cost me money.
Yeah.
And I'm still gonna cost me money. Yeah. Either way, it's gonna cost me money.
I mean, I was always at the mindset of like, I'm like, you want to know what? I'm busy right now. You do what you think's best. Impress me. Click.
Smart move.
And then they're like, oh, maybe I can do it. Let me figure it
Yeah,
out. And it literally makes them think
Empowered.
to like, oh, what
would I do?
I know the guy that bought the business is, he's asking Jeff, which has been, Jeff's been with me like 8 or 10 years. But he always goes, what would Mark do? You know?
Oh, yeah.
And the good thing is when the transition, I think I was supposed to work for 160 hours or something, but it was so streamlined. I literally worked there for like a day or two. And he goes, if I need you, I'll call you. And I'm like, see ya. And he calls periodically.
Who bought it?
An attorney by trade, not practicing.
Okay.
But what he did was he was working for another company that would buy companies, build them up, sell them.
Yep.
So
Kind of like a PE firm, sort of like
yeah,
that.
and he was doing all that work, and he goes, I want to try one on my own, you know? But
So he thinks he can build yours up a little bit and then probably flip it.
oh, I mean, there's multiples for sure.
Absolutely.
Oh, I like I
You
said,
left money on the table, I'm sure.
Massive, but I wanted to go and
Do your thing.
do my thing.
You told me this 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was to me. It wasn't about like the money, and I didn't keep. I pushed it up to that point, and even I had another company come and approach me. Like, there's another garage door company. They're like, "How are you getting these numbers?" And I'm just like, you just got to be better than the other guy, right? You just want to lead, and but it wasn't about the money, but. Nevertheless, I wanted to go and do my own
So
thing.
this new racing that you're doing,
Yeah.
Are you racing multiple circuits right now? Like the old, the vintage, the new? Are you constantly racing now?
I'm doing a lot of arrive and drive. So this next weekend I'll be up at VIR. I'm running an NPO1 car.
What is that?
It's like a prototype almost. NPO1 prototype.
Okay.
It's got the bubble kind of looking.
No shit.
Yeah. So I'm running that in an endurance race. It's 9 hours on Saturday and 7 on Sunday.
And the Huracan race is what?
Yeah. I ran NASA, so Hyperfest last month or 2 months and a half
what is
ago.
that? Explain a Hyperfest.
Hyperfest is cool. Like VIR Hyperfest, there was, I don't know, 100,000 people there or something, 80,000 people.
Oh, shit.
It's music. They have Power Wheels down race on the back of the track. They have concerts, drifting, burnout. I mean, it's a massive, massive weekend.
And
If you
what's
watch
it
any
called? Hypercon?
Hyperfest.
Hyperfest.
Yeah.
Wow. And so you have to have a hypercar to roll?
No, I ran, most of the time you have to have them dynoed or they fit into a certain group.
Right.
I didn't have time for that because I signed up the week before and I said, just put me in whatever you want. I'm going to have fun. So they put me in Super Unlimited, is which I was running against like a Trans Am 850 horsepower car. You could run, what a NASCAR was in there a couple of years ago when I ran my BMW. It's a catch-all.
You still have the BMW?
I sold both of those, yeah. So I raced Nashville. I had 2 BMW M4 GT4s and went up to Nashville. The Grand Prix is the inaugural year, first year. I had to start last because I clipped one of the barriers and it bent my front rim on quali, first lap of quali. And so I had to start in the back. I worked all the way up to like 4th place, and 3rd place was like where the wall was. And I'm picking these guys off. I'm like, dude, I'm podium. I'm on a podium. And so anyways, I'm clicking these guys off. I'm like, dude, I got second because the second guy was back to back. And about 6 minutes left in the race, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Click on the radio. I'm like, no boost. So, they're turbos, and one of the boost hoses, the clamp broke. And I got out. I was freaking pissed because I knew that I was like, first year I wanted to get on there. And one of the other mechanics goes, I brought my own mechanics. And then another team supported it. And he goes, one of your mechanics over tightened that. He goes, I saw him do it this morning. So on those clamps, they're metal. If you keep tightening them down every day, it stretches the metal. So what you really have to do is take it off, put a new one, crank it down. If you want to do it again, take it off, put a new one on. Well, he didn't do that. And I was pissed. I'm like, because it's expensive. Like some of these weekends were even upwards of $50,000 a weekend. So,
Wow.
So, and I had 2 cars, you know, my motorhome, the stacker behind me, and this guy wrecked his car, another M4. And he goes, I got a race like next week. And I go, I'll sell you everything. He's like, real? I'm like, take everything. I was so pissed. And he ended up buying it. And I was like, I'm done. So
that race fucked it up. He's like, you can have the trailer, the cars.
And I didn't even.
Hey, by the way, the mechanic comes for free.
I didn't even take like my personal stuff. I just took everything.
Really?
No, I was so pissed.
Write me a check.
Yeah.
Take it.
So the self-inflicted stuff I don't like. Like if a hub goes bad or, you know, something breaks, that's okay. But the mechanics, there's a big difference between a mechanic and a race mechanic. And to have a race mechanic, you have to know these things.
I know this because of racing at the level we did in motocross. We only trusted one person to ever get our bikes ready, race ready.
Yeah. So nut and bolt check. It's like you wouldn't take a race bike up to Honda motorcycles here and be like, hey, can you set everything?
Well, on the way in, we were talking about you starting to maybe fly a little bit. My son is flying solo and is about a couple of weeks away from getting his FAA
That's awesome.
license. He's got to do his last ride. But the checklist to fly a plane, Garrett, have you ever flown a little small plane? Like
I have never, but I have a lot of friends that are pilots and they just fly small planes. And you're sitting there for an hour before you can actually talk, which makes sense.
Yeah.
I would hate for someone to say,
they
we got this.
They check the fuel to make sure it's the right color.
Yeah, no water in it. Yeah.
It's like, I mean, they go over this checklist and the checklist and the checklist and the checklist. I mean, Colby has to walk around this plane like 10 times.
You get pretty efficient at
Yeah,
it. But I'll tell you, when I first went up, and the first time I actually took I think it was called the intro flight or something like that, the lady let me take off, right? And we get up, and I'm like, oh, that was easy, right? And we're going around, and she's like, and I'm moving the rotors and everything, and she goes, God, have you flown before? I'm like, no, but I understand it because when I rally raced, you're steering with your feet.
Balance.
It's steering with your feet. If you got crosswinds, you know, you got to counter it. And she's like, this is the best I've ever seen. She goes, I go, no. You know, I just watched like some videos and like read.
It's cool.
And I was reading some of the books, but I go, but I understand the concept of how everything works.
That's awesome.
But I was first of all, I'm claustrophobic and I don't like heights. Yeah. Bad.
Let's just overcome both those fears.
And I'm like getting close to buying a plane now. But so anyway, so
if you want to go on halves on one, let me know.
Okay, I will. I'm getting a Bonanza A36.
Okay.
6-seater.
Yes.
It's good. Like you can go down
Turbo?
to Bahamas. No, prop.
Okay.
So you can go down to the Bahamas and, you know, stop in Miami or, you know, stuff like that. But 6-seater is the way to go. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, we started to get up, and then, you know, she like kind of took the controls. I'm like, we got to go back down. And it took a little while before I was like really comfortable. The reason why is I'm thinking this thing, like if the engine stops, I'm thinking we're nose diving, right? Not true. Dude, we brought that back to idle, and it's just like, it's so crazy once you're up there. I mean, you see those birds that don't flap their wings? It's the same thing.
The planes fly themselves almost.
You just go.
And jetliners are the same way. You don't just fall out of the sky. You just keep
gliding.
Yeah.
So that once I got that, I'm like, okay, I feel better now. Now, if a wing came off, you're fucked, right? But I leave to Key West tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'm looking. I've never been because like I'm starting to travel all these places, and I'm looking at this bridge driving down, and people are like, oh, you fly into Miami, and I'm like, I'm not driving over that. So I'm flying directly into Key West. But that was the first thing. I was like, I don't even like going over. Like going through Jacksonville, there's a big bridge going down to like Daytona and stuff.
The one that doesn't bother me is
ugh.
Charleston. That bridge is fine.
Yeah.
And the one that killed me was in Maryland. I was going over I was pulling my toy hauler with my truck. Kids in the back going to a race. This bridge was literally, I'm not kidding, doing this.
They're designed to do that, they're going to tell you.
They are designed to move, right? I'm driving, and I feel, you never had the wind like really bad on the interstate? That's how you felt on this thing. And you're doing this, and a freaking 18-wheeler's coming down the way. I'm pulling a trailer. Mirrors are probably a good 7-8 inches apart. And I'm over here like, what the hell was that? What's your favorite car?
The Alfa Romeo.
Alfa Romeo.
Yeah.
Testarossa is what year? 80 what?
That is a 91.
91 white.
Nice.
It's white, right?
I sold the red tan, and I went down to Amelia Island and ended up picking that. Yeah,
White
I wanted
one.
the white with the red.
Right.
That's awesome. To match the Diablo that
To
I
match
might
the
have
Diablo.
seen.
Yeah. The Diablo's white, red.
Yeah.
So, and I just bought a LMO2, which is the Lamborghini truck.
The what?
It's a. If you ever seen them?
Oh yeah, the white one that you posted.
They call
the
it
other day.
they call it the Rambo Lambo.
It looked like an Evo.
Yeah, but when I bought that, I drove it up to
Where the hell did you get that?
the guy lived in Miami, right?
Okay.
But so anyway, so I bought it and I drove it around just that day, and I took it to my shop over in Plaza Midwood, and I picked it up. Today's Thursday. I picked it up on Tuesday. I was like, I'm gonna start driving this. That thing is so sweet. It's it's a V12. It's the same engine as the Countach.
In a fucking truck?
Five-speed dog leg transmission.
Get out.
Yeah.
And the
But-
tires are about as wide as that table.
So the tires, speaking of them, they're called. What came with them were Pirelli Scorpions, and they were $4,000 a tire, made specifically for this car. And you can't get them anymore, right? But when I bought it, the guy goes, I still have one's on the back, so the spare, and then he goes, I have the other four, and I got them. They're actually in pretty decent shape. So they might have been changed out on the car, but if somebody wanted an all original, they would probably want these tires, and they're hard to come by. So there's probably a lot of value in them. I don't know what you can get them on the secondary market, but I would imagine it's decent because if somebody's not driving them, they want the original tires. Or set
So
it
you
to the
have a
side.
set that's on it.
I have a spare set, yeah.
That's
Some
awesome.
Pirelli Scorpions.
Right. And how did you just one day roam? Did you just bring a trailer? Or did you
Oh,
find,
no, they came with the car.
No,
They-
when you bring a trailer, how did you find it? How did you find this truck?
The truck.
Oh, I bought the Diablo from the same broker.
Same guy.
Yeah.
And you knew it was a
Yeah.
broker.
Yeah, and before he put it up for sale, he called me, and they're going up pretty quickly. So, yep.
So you
I
got
don't
a
know
good
what-
deal on it?
Not necessarily. I paid,
Top dollar.
yeah.
But 2 years from now.
But they're not coming down, I can tell you that.
Right. It's a
So,
good investment.
Correct.
And you'd
Yeah.
rather have like assets. People don't realize, like people with wealth, they buy things to hold value that can have potential to go up in value that you can enjoy. You can drive this truck, you can go somewhere, you can insure it. If it gets totaled or gets stolen, you get money in the stock market and it goes
Yeah.
away. Poof, there goes your money.
So, yeah, in the last 4 months, I think I spent 1.7 million on assets of cars.
Right.
Because one, I don't know where the dollar's going to be at. It scared the hell out of me with the dollar right now.
So you're
What's
just out
coming
there
up.
buying cars and
Yeah, I'd rather have my money in some assets
I agree.
that I could sell down the road or export.
well, you texted me the other night and you were asking me about my land.
Correct.
And you were like, I'm looking to buy some land. I said, you know what? That is the best investment I have ever made.
Yeah.
I bought that shit 17, 18 years ago. I bought this little track. I was tenting this dude pickup truck. And my kids were little. And I looked at him. I said, dude. He goes, what? And I go, I'm looking for some land. He goes, I just want a place to go ride some four-wheelers, shoot some guns. And he's like, well, I got this 10-acre tract out here that I'm about to list on the market. And it had a house on it. And he said, what are you doing after this? And I just tinted the front two windows on his truck. He was a realtor, a top power realtor. And I said, nothing. I said, you want to go look at it? He said, yeah, let's go look at it. So I went out there and looked at it. He had a list price, but it had a house, had a well, had power. The house was kind of decrepit and old. It was like one of those historical, old homes, and it had a pond. And I said, okay. I said, how much you want for it? And he goes, I think we're going to list it for $75,000 or $80,000. And I said, yeah, okay. And I driving home, we talked and everything, and then I called him up, and it was in an estate. So someone had passed away.
Yeah.
So someone else inherited it who didn't want it. And I'm sitting there going, well, there's got to be some attachment because it's an estate of someone who died who knew the land or whatever. So I offered him $50,000, and they took it.
Yeah.
And I wrote him a check, $50,000. And I get out there, me and my buddy take machetes, the old barn they had. We started fixing it up, and we go out there on the weekends. I bought my first four-wheeler. I'd bring my kids out. We start drinking beer and acting like we were John Deere in it, And I was like, man, this is how boys need to be living out here, right? And next thing you know, we did a couple trails, and then I was like, fuck. 10 acres is not enough.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is nothing. Wherever they're shooting guns, like, pam, pam, pam. And there's a neighbor down over there, and I'm like, we need some more. So I went on GIS, and I looked at the property behind me, and I reached down to the guy that owned it, bought it. Then another tract came, and another tract came, and I ended up buying 6-8 tracts all over a 17-year period.
Yeah.
And I just kept buying. I've got one more track that's left attached to my property where the guy that sold me the land in the back, he passed away. His wife is in hospice. I went and met the lady that's taking care of her and called the daughter. So she's got my number. The daughter knows who I am, knows I bought the land from her dad, and she lives in Washington, D.C. And she said, no, we might want to keep it. It's got a trailer on it, and it's 10 acres. And I said, look, I'd like to keep the tracks together. You know, I don't want some random guy coming out of the blue buying this, and then all of a sudden I got this weird neighbor that's down the street from me. I said, just promise me this. If you don't want to sell it, that's fine. You know, if you need me to help you maintain it, I got a Bobcat, I got tractors, I'll come over there, I'll do whatever you need me to do. I'll keep the yard looking nice. I said, but promise me that you give me first right of refusal if you do decide to sell it so you can keep it all together. And she goes, absolutely. So we texted a few times.
Good, yeah.
So that's what I've been trying to do, is to protect myself from getting these weirdos to come in and start, you know, thinking like I was back in the day. Because all the people that are my neighbors for 17 years down there, they thought I was the weirdo 17 years ago.
So speaking
Still
speaking of that land, that you let me take the rally car down there.
Yeah, you had a rally car. That was so cool.
Well, I rented that from a guy from Australia.
We made more. I'm sorry, not we. You made more dust in a day than I've ever seen in my life.
We ordered a water truck. Do you remember that?
Did it
we had to
help
go
at all?
get So the problem was that car was new, and it was for a Red Bull Rallycross, the GRC. Fun. So I was running with we were in GRC lights, and then the supers were like Scott Speed, Tanner Faust, all those guys. Yeah. Even though they were factory cars, Hondas, Volkswagen.
You know, I saw those videos.
Oh, really?
I still have all those videos of you doing donuts. And we had a motorcycle track out there that I just demolished, because we used to race motocross and had our own practice track out there. And I just, Colby just retired, and I just cleaned the track, and it was full of dirt. It was just fresh dirt everywhere.
It was crazy.
It was so dirty and dusty. I was like, motherfucker. Because I had my toy hauler, and I came out there a week later, it was brown.
I sent a guy down to wash it, right?
Did,
I sent a guy to wash it.
I was like, bro, this thing is brown. Yeah. And, but no, it was funny because I have a video of you doing donuts or something, this thing, and it was the biggest dust cloud I'd ever seen in my life. And I said, he said, what do I do? And I go, with motocross, we get water trucks, and we just bring the water trucks, and it kind of softens the dirt. What did that do? It gummed up the tires, didn't it?
No, I mean they water down the track after each after each
Did it do better?
Anyways. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Did you ever race that race?
I did. I ran Seattle, and then I ran Los Angeles.
How was it?
It was good.
Fun?
I went back to Seattle. It was Evergreen Raceway. So you kind of run on the banking and then the asphalt and come into the dirt. I actually did pretty decent, never been on dirt before. So I went to the Dirt Fish Rally School up in Snoqualmie, Washington State. And in fact, that's where I ended up buying that R5 from this guy, Steven Rimmer. If you guys like rally stuff, he's got about 70 really, really good rally cars. And I just bought his Ford RS 200 Evo. So that is
I think it's pretty cool.
What do those run?
I paid $533 for it.
Wow.
So here's the problem. I'm selling it. And there's only 2 cars that I've ever sold that I go, I just can't do it. One was an R5 Turbo. It had 350 horsepower, and it was really, we couldn't get it tuned because it was 15 years ago. They didn't have all these standalone units and people programming them like they do now. If I had that car now, the thing would be a monster, but I had to sell it because nobody could work on it.
So you bought it and nobody could work on it, you sold it. And
I sold it, and they exported it to Spain or something, the guy did, but he was a headhunter for these cars. And,
right.
But, and that Ford's going up for sale. It only has 360 miles on its 86. And
it's up for sale now?
It's going to. So it's going to be on Bring a Trailer. But I can't drive it. It's so extreme. Just even to get out of you would stall it 20 times before you actually.
The clutch is that tight.
It's absolute insanity. So even running TA2 cars, Trans Am cars, okay, they're hard to get going. That's why they push them. This, 10 times that.
Wow.
You can't drive on the streets.
How beefy is the Huracan? What was yours called? The new one, the race car?
Evo 2.
Evo 2.
Yeah, super trailer.
What is
It's a spec series, so it would be spec E46 or spec E36, Miatas, spec Miatas. So it's a spec series is a Super Trofeo. And then they have a GT3, but yeah.
And you like that car?
Oh, it's unbelievable. I haven't done anything but
get in and
tires and brakes.
What'd that car cost?
It was $250.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah. And I thought I got a good deal on it because it was a 2022. The new ones are 333,000.
So not bad.
And you can't. They only sell X amount. I think they made like 80 of them.
Are they bulletproof? They're pretty reliable.
It's an Audi V12 or V10 engine.
So it's pretty.
It's the same one that's in the R8.
Yeah.
Yeah, so easy to drive, like, and it's just the brakes are ungodly. The speed is like.
What are you doing? 180 mile?
So the backstretch, it's limited to 174.
170.
Yeah, it's a 6-speed. I was coming down at Road Atlanta, and I'm on the last light in six gear, and I'm going, nothing. I'm like, I need to go to 7th. There's no 7th gear. And even I think the M4 had 8 gears. So you can't run it at Daytona because it runs out of gear.
My GT500 has 10.
Yeah, they had 6 gears, like 6 speed.
Yeah.
And I'm going, I'm not buying it. I'm like, because I got a buddy that has one. I'm like, they got a 7th gear in there and they're hiding it from us. We got to get in there and like figure this out. But how would you run a 6-speed on that? There's no way.
That's the car you're driving now?
Yeah, so it's limited to 174, but yeah, and I'm tacked out like one light.
What's the cars you sold you wish you could get back?
That R5 was probably one of them.
The Ford.
I sold during the pandemic in 2020. I told this guy who finds cars for me and helps sell them if I do sell them. I was like, I want an F40 because I'm thinking it's pandemic, right? Businesses are shut down. Nobody's making any money. I go, I want an F40. And I said, sell these cars. I had 5. I sold a 348 Speciale, which they only made, I think, 50 or 52 of them. It was a Ferrari, you know. I sold a 328, super, super nice car. Trying to think what else I sold. I sold like 4 or 5 cars. And I was like, I want to buy an F40. And I'm thinking, dude, these things are going to plummet, right? People are going to be strapped for cash. They're going to be throwing it, blah, blah, blah. And,
Nuts.
yeah.
Car doubled in value.
So I'm like, I told the guys, like, I only want to spend like $1 million on one of these. They're like at 1.3, 1.6. I'm like, just wait. Someone's going to dump it. The businesses are closed. Never happened. And now they're like,
2 million.
yeah, 2 to 3, sometimes 3.5.
Yeah, they've gone insane.
In fact, when I went to Amelia Island, I was looking. There was one there that I was looking at. It had all the major service, and you got to do the bladders in the fuel tank. So everything was done, but I ended up buying that Testarossa and the Ford.
And you own Dynamic Auto Tune as well.
I'm partners in it.
Partners in
I've
it?
got two other partners.
That's
yeah.
awesome. And that's a service place for
Yeah.
European cars. They
Yeah.
do a lot of work for you?
Yes, it depends on what it is.
What it is?
Yeah.
Do you have like your own mechanic that comes and does stuff for you?
Mike from Eurowise, do you know Mike from
I know who
Eurowise?
he is, yeah.
Yeah, I literally could like take him this, like be like, hey man, this is broken. He'll be like, okay, I'll 3D print you one.
I'll build you a new one.
And then like in like 3 days, he's like, yeah, here. I'm like, okay. Parts that are, he's phenomenal. Like that guy, he literally crushes it.
But Mark, thank you
Yeah.
for your time, man.
Cool.
You're awesome, dude. You're really good.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, man. Interesting stories. Honestly, it's just awesome to learn.
I could come back, sit on that side, and we could talk about something else. No
Whatever
one
you
would
want.
ever know, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Guest host.
Guest host. Love it.
All right, Mike.
Hey, my man. Thank you, brother.
Thanks, buddy.
Let's wrap it up. See you.